Hello and a very warm welcome to Bharata First. You're watching Big Picture with Frank Rausen Pereira. Since you are here, I would like to thank you for your continued support. For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter to get some incisive theme based content. The Bharata First team is also running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me. The program is called Hot Seat, and in the process, you can improve your own knowledge as well. Details are in the description of this video. There is also a contribution link for those who would like to come forward and contribute. Do continue to show your love and support because I need it more so now than ever. Let's get on with the discussion now, where Chief of Defence Staff General Bipin Rawat last week said that China is capable of launching cyber attacks against India and that there is a capability gap between the two countries when it comes to technology. In an address at the Vivekananda International Foundation, he also said that India's leadership displayed political will and determination to uphold vital national interests in the face of unprovoked assault on its security and dignity, remarks seen as an apparent reference to the border row with China in eastern Ladakh. In response to a question, he said the biggest differential between India and China lies in the field of the cyber domain, adding that the neighboring country has been able to invest a lot of funds on new technologies. In this edition of Big Picture, we will analyze how to counter China's cyber threat. Joining me on the program today are Jitin Jain, cybersecurity analyst, Jaydev Ranade, President, Center for China Analysis and Strategy, and Major General Dhruv C. Katoch, retired Director, India Foundation. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of Big Picture. Mr. Ranade, let me start the program with you first. China has been a problem area on many fronts as far as India is concerned. One of them also being cyber attacks and its capabilities really to carry out attacks. We've seen that in the recent past as well. How big a threat is China on this front, and what should our strategy really be?
Without mincing any words, Frank, let me just say that China is a huge threat as far as India is concerned. And this is for a couple of factors. And let me just list 2 points. One, their capability in hardware. The fact that they're the world leaders almost. They have been in terms of setting up telecommunication lines in computer hardwares, etc. And most of the world is using it, and that includes us. That facilitates access by the Chinese, unauthorized access by the Chinese into our secure, or what shall I say, critical communication systems, namely telephones, Wi-Fi, and computers. Secondly, the manner in which China crafted a cyber policy where it erased the distinction between military and civilian capabilities and has promoted their big tech companies or IT companies into not only training the PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army, but setting up virtually, shall I say, cyber hacking units or cells dedicated to hacking targeted countries or targeted subjects on behalf of the government or on behalf of the Public Security Bureau. All this is reinforced by China's own push, domestic push for digitization. And they are doing a lot of things there. They are doing facial recognition. They are tracking people. And that has increased with the pandemic under the garb of regulating or controlling or tracking, shall I say, those infected and those not infected. Obviously, there is a pushback because I have of late started seeing posts on blogs by people supportive of the government saying that the people want such digitization, they want such digital controls in order to make China a safe and secure place. But apart from that, that is an area which allows China to practice and refine the technologies it has. For us, it's a huge threat because they have accessed our systems repeatedly. And as you rightly pointed out, there was an indication given by the Chinese, not very subtle, recently by shutting down the electrical networks in Mumbai.
Absolutely. General, here's where I'd like to bring you in. This is not something that only India is concerned about. In the recent past, we've seen several other countries around the world, notably democracies, large democracies, who are clearly upset and clearly worried about China's capabilities on this front. Is there something that is being done, or can like-minded nations come together to take on the might of China, especially in this domain where it seems to be surging ahead of the rest?
Yes, Frank. I think there is a need for countries to unite as far as this particular aspect is concerned. But let me make one thing clear, though I totally agree with what Mr. Ranade has said as far as the Chinese threat is concerned. The thing is, we have to be concerned about any other country also. It is not simply China. Anybody can attack you on the cyber domain and remain hidden. So when we look into our systems, our protective measures, it has to be across the board. It cannot be targeted at any one country. So we will have to the system which we have to adopt will have to be unique for India for our protection against a cyber threat emanating from any domain. And once we can do that, then obviously it'll cater to the Chinese threat also. Now, as far as like-minded democracies are concerned, cooperating on this particular matter, I think again there is going to be a very a great deal of difficulty. To put it on a different aspect, let us take the aspect of spying on other countries. Now, you will find democracies spying on each other also. Information is what is happening in the modern age. So when people are going to cooperate, there will be certain things which they are not going to tell you. So if you take a country like if you take Britain or Israel, which are very well advanced in cyber capability, the Americans and the Russians are also, of course, greatly advanced. But when you take their capability into account, I really won't be surprised if the Israelis or the Brits would try to do something as far as India is concerned. So our threat is not simply restricted to the Chinese, though I believe that the Chinese will be the major threat. We will have to look at it across the board. And when we are looking at cooperation, I think there is going to be very severe challenges in whom we cooperate with. I would rather go with what Mr. Ranade has said as far as the hardware is concerned. This is something where we can cooperate with other countries, say a country like Taiwan, and start manufacturing our own chips, etc. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and unless we invest in our hardware, I think we are always going to be vulnerable. Frank.
Absolutely. I'd like to take up an issue of Huawei and some kind of consensus we saw there. I'll just come back to that with you, Mr. Ranade, in a bit. But before that, let me bring in Jitin Jain into the picture. We're talking about hardware, Jitin. We're talking about it from and both the panelists before you have already spoken about it. What about other technologies? Is the answer to this problem? Does the answer lie in technology?
Of course, when General Rawat the other day said that I think the biggest differential between India and China today is the cyber attack capability, I think he was right on the mark. But I think that admission has arrived too late into the strategic thinking of India. I think this realization should have happened 8 years ago. I think today, if you were to analyze the differential between India and Pakistan, you may find both the countries at equal footing, and Pakistan was way behind us a decade ago. So Pakistan has done the catch up, and we are still standstill, and we have the differential between India and China is increasing to a level that probably it will take a decade for us to catch up. Now, when it comes to technology, you see it's a problem at three fronts. One is Chinese espionage, Chinese sabotage, and Chinese propaganda. So for many, many years, the whole Chinese threat was limited to espionage, targeting machines, mobile phone systems, compromising computers, targeting Tibetan government in exile in Dharamshala or Indian defense establishment. And that has gone on for a decade, and that has gone across the world. They have targeted European countries, they have targeted private companies in US and other defense manufacturers. An idea was to glean some military intelligence, strategic intelligence, and also to leapfrog their economy by stealing patents, designs, targeting medical institutions, targeting companies like Lockheed Martin to steal the aircraft designs. So that has gone on for decades. Now, in last 5 to 7 years, with the unbelievable rise of Chinese hardware companies like Huawei, ZTE, the world is facing a different problem. It's a problem of compromising or infecting the entire supply chain. No matter what security solutions you put, but if you are at the end of the day using Chinese routers, Chinese cloud, or Chinese gadgetry, which is nothing but a front end of Chinese government subsidizing these gadgets for a larger state-backed surveillance empire. So I think governments across the world, democracies across the world are realizing that whichever countries dominates this technology, especially in the hardware sector, including 5G, will dominate the intelligence world for next 40 years. And that is why this whole US-China struggle to ensure that who controls 5G is happening. And we, India, cannot afford to stay on the crossroads. We have to take a side. And the problem is we do not have an indigenous in India built option available. You either go with Europe, you either go with Americans, and or you go with Chinese. So I think it's better to deal with a known devil than an unknown one. We do not have a border crisis or a disputed territory with US or Europe. We do have a dispute or a emerging military conflict with China. So I think I would put my bet on US or Europe for the timing to deal with the Chinese problem till the time we come up with an Indian standard. Now, last is the problem of propaganda. You see, Chinese for many, many years operated behind the Great Firewall. All the Western companies like Facebook, Google, or Twitter were blocked in China. They operated in their own island, which they controlled effectively by using Great Firewall. There was absolute censorship. You will not find anything about Tibet or anything about Chinese wrongs or dictatorship. Now, I think in last 2 years, the way Chinese are growing their influence by using a CPEC or this Belt and Road Initiative, they are also looking to put their sphere of influence in the cyber world by using Western platforms as propaganda. And that is the reason more than 2,000 Chinese governments, bureaucrats, and diplomats have suddenly popped up on Twitter in last 1.5 years and on Facebook. And they have not just popped up for listening. They are running a full-fledged Chinese propaganda, promoting medicines, promoting Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, promoting the Chinese soft image, tourism, and all, countering Western diplomats, ousting Western publications, backed by now the emergence in last 7 to 8 months of Chinese bots, where you are amplifying fake propaganda. For example, thousands of accounts were tweeting that how the riots in US were oppressing black community, how in Ladakh it was 82 Chinese soldiers which were trying to help Indian soldiers by giving them some first aid, whereas you in the photos you saw that soldiers were tied up with the ropes and all. So they were trying to showcase, instead of that barbaric image of Chinese Jawans using Stone Age tactics as the first aid givers. So that propaganda has gone on. They've ran a propaganda that how Chinese army is now advancing towards Ladakh with this all AI-based gadgetries, drones, and they are serving hot food to Chinese soldiers where Indian soldiers might go down in cold. So that propaganda is now happening, and a country which has got enough manpower, money, and technology will be a bigger threat than a country like Pakistan or US.
This is interesting. Let me take this point forward with you, Mr. Ranade. How do you deal with a behemoth like China, who indulges in under the belt tactics? And let's also not forget that whether we like it or not, geographical compulsions are such that we are neighbors, and we have to deal with China whether we like it or not. In such a kind of a scenario, what should our strategy be? How should we counter it?
Well, you raised a couple of points, Frank, which I will like to touch on before I go into the reply as such. The first is, as you said, China is a neighbor which we have to deal with. The question is, how are we going to deal with it? After all, from 1962 till 88, our dealings were minimal. Till 85 rather, 86, our dealings were minimal. So the first point I'm making is we have to reduce the kind of dependence that we have acquired over the years on Chinese goods. That is the first thing. Because in the process, we have hollowed out our own industry, our own capacities for going in for precision machining, for power, energy, power generators, etc. So we have to get that capability back. This a current example is our dependence on reagents, etc., for the pharma industry we are getting them from China. Earlier, we used to do it on our own. Now, why are these? Why did we shift away? Because it was cheaper. But did no one sit and take cognizance of the fact that we are weakening our own, shall I say, vital and critical sector in doing so? So these are issues that are going to come up. To come to your second point, what are the threats? Well, China has not been a friendly power for many years. Now they have come out in the open and said so. They published a book in 1999 called Unrestricted Warfare. That should have been a wake-up call for us. As Jiten was saying, we have been sleeping on the job, frankly. 1999, that book called Unrestricted Warfare, written by two colonels, made it very clear that a weak country can use anything in its arsenal against a stronger country. It was targeted at the United States, but equally, it is for us too. And cyber became a big factor in that unrestricted warfare. We all know what they have been doing. Right now, we have to understand that we are starting from virtually a very low base in countering the Chinese or anyone else. As General Katot said, that we have to be careful of others also spying on us. Obviously, when you're looking at another country or when there's espionage, it's against everyone, including your closest friends. So it doesn't mean that one country is, not a threat in this matter. But as Jiten said, whom are we going to go with? Who is safer? And here, there are very competent countries like Japan, like the United States in cyber capability. We've got to think about which one we can partner with. Once we acquire a capability, we have to go on our own to develop our own hardware systems, maybe for restricted use, but it has to happen. And that is the way we can counter the Chinese. Finally, let me just say, we have to get offensive in our thinking. And I don't mean offensive to other people, but I mean offensive in the terms of strategy. We have to get offensive in our thinking. We cannot have only defensive capabilities in cyber. We have to back that up with offensive capabilities. Defensive is also, we have to draw in more people. In China, they have got what started off as 10 centers. Now they have 50 centers. They're just students, others who are cyber savvy, who are being paid that amount. Basically, it's nationalism that draws them to work for the state in either monitoring their own people or targeting other countries. We have a lot of manpower here, a lot of people who are cyber savvy. I think the time has come to co-opt them, not only into getting ideas, encouraging them to have their own startups, but also for this function. So we'll have to operate on multiple platforms in multiple ways, but it's not something that can't be done. It will take time to short circuit the time or telescope the time. We will have to partner with other countries like the United States and Japan, with whom, as Jiten rightly pointed out, this is something I've been saying, we have no outstanding disputes.
Absolutely. General, couple of aspects that I want to take forward with you. You heard both the panelists, have their say as well. So let's talk about this aspect first. Do you believe that our response capabilities are going to be limited, not because of any other reason, because we play by the rules? We are a democratic country. We ensure that we play by the rules and we do not, employ the kind of tactics that China does. That is one. Secondly, we were also talking about this issue of Huawei and how there was some kind of a consensus, maybe a few months back that everyone would boycott Huawei and they were really concerned. But that concern seems to be waning now. Why is that so?
Okay, the first part of it, when we are looking at cyber warfare, there is one aspect which people need to understand, that when we are talking with China, I think the first aspect of this warfare, if a war takes place, is really going to be on the cyber domain. Actually, it will be on the information domain, but that has been going on for a very long time, the aspect of information warfare. But otherwise, it is going to start with cyber attacks. And the attacks are not necessarily on military targets. They could be anywhere. It could be on Mumbai, as Mr. Ranade said. It could take place in any place. It could be in Bangalore. So now the battlefield is not really defined, and cyber is going to be a key player, because cyber controls your complete command, control, and communication networks. We are talking of our space satellites, and we are talking of our ground stations. And the interconnectivity in between the two, it really forms the grid across the whole country. So now, are we going to be ethical if the Chinese don't play by the rules? Now, I've got a feeling that we will still play it ethically, because there will be consequences to China when they go on an unethical path. Because what China can do to others, others can also do to China, and they will be equally vulnerable. Now, Mr. Ranade made a point of Chinese society, moving towards a direction where of facial recognition, etc. No, that is quite common. It's quite in China, a person can simply walk into a mart, pick up some stuff, and go back, and facial recognition would have actually done the rest. The amount of stuff which he takes out would have automatically been debited from his bank account. Now they have reached that level. Now, when you reach higher and higher levels of technology, there is also the flip side. You become vulnerable also. So while China is in a position to carry out these sort of attacks, I think they are vulnerable too, and they need to be careful as to which way they go. As far as Huawei is concerned, now this is something which I have found very strange. I want to give you an example of insulators. You know that the electric poles which you see and the insulators which you see on them. Now they are made in India, and then the Chinese started giving us the insulators at a much cheaper cost. Now their insulators, while they were cheaper, they had a shorter lifespan, and over a lifespan of 35 to 40 years, which was what the Indian insulator does, ours was much cheaper. But you look at the way the bureaucracy deals with it. The fellow who's dealing with it in the Power Grid Corporation, he will say, listen, if I buy this at this particular cheap rate now, I'm going to show so and so profit. Now, there is no consideration as to the jobs which are being lost or of the market control which is being given to the Chinese. Now, thankfully, of course, that particular issue has been addressed. But there are many issues which have to be addressed, including what has happened in the pharma sector. So Huawei is actually following that path. There are enough people whom the Chinese can bribe in the Indian system. It is simply a question of giving 5 crores here and 10 crores there to certain key people who will start espousing the Chinese cause. Now, I think these people also constitute, and I'll be very honest about it, an equal threat to society. Now, they will justify every statement of theirs when they show the balance books. And they will say that, listen, this is so much cheaper, etc., etc. Now, that may be so. It may certainly be cheaper. But what is the cost in terms of loss of jobs as far as India is concerned? What is the strategic nature of those items? And what happens if China gets total control? Then we are going to be enslaved once again. So I think we need to be very, very careful. Everything in India cannot be based on the bottom line that, okay, I'm going to buy the cheapest L1 product. I think those days are over. We will have to look at strategic products in a totally different manner. Huawei, to my mind, should never ever touch the shores of India. I hope the government takes note of that. It should never ever touch the shores of India. We can partner with Japan or Taiwan or the United States, but never ever should we allow Huawei to come in, because once they are in, please remember, as per the Chinese law, Huawei is duty bound to give all data which they make to the government of China. That is Chinese law. They have put that into the law, and we must be very cognizant of the dangers which are there to us. Frank.
Absolutely. I think that's a very valid point that you're making, General. For small term gains, you should look at the bigger picture and not undergo a bigger long-term loss. And that's something that if we can get in our minds and get that sorted out, I think it's half the battle won. Jitin Jain, coming back to you now. I'm no technocrat, but my knowledge in technology is limited to that of the common man. But we only hear of blockchain technology and all these new emerging technologies on a daily basis. Is this something that we can develop here? We can have some homegrown stuff like that we can ensure that we can keep the Chinese threat out, or not just Chinese threat, but just cyber attack threat out of India using these new emerging technologies?
Well, no, because you see, technologies like blockchain, obviously you have got several indigenous startups and solutions, but blockchain cannot be the answer of everything. It can ensure the integrity of data, but it cannot ensure the security and safety of data. I mean, by security, I mean the privacy of data. So it can ensure that data is not tampered with, but the data cannot be stolen and copied is not something blockchain can ensure. Now, there could be solution in some instances, but not in the military domain. Now, second thing, as you know, I think what General Katos said could not have been put in a better way, that there is a large section of Indian telecom and power bureaucracy, which is literally working as a proxy marketing team of Chinese companies. They would find any way to ensure that these companies, despite of whatever strategic thinking or opposition or security concerns are, survive in Indian market. I mean, where would you find in the world where a country which is facing threat to its territory, where a country which has already taken a huge chunk of its territory in Kashmir is now vying for others in Northeast, kills your soldiers, and then a government wakes up and does a course correction, goes on to ban 59 apps, goes on to issue a telecom security directive, and I think they are coming up with the power sector also to ensure that there is no sabotage or espionage. And then just before that telecom security directive is coming to effect, you are one of the largest telecom operators, Bharti Airtel, goes on to buy a 100 CR deal with Huawei. हिंदी में अगर आप ही के लोग आप ही की नाव में छेद करेंगे, then no matter how many safety bots or safety nets you have or tubes you have, the ship is going to sink. I think, and no telecom bureaucrat did anything. I think there is a bigger problem in India that we have for long gone on to find ways and arguments that why we should carry on trade with Huawei, business logics and cheap gadgetry. I think what Dr. Katos and Dr. Ranade said, that you may find alternatives for time being with other democracies. Ultimately, you'll have to bring your own solutions. But even in that process, you cannot allow any Chinese companies into your strategic sectors to have any direct or indirect influence or control or any possibility of sabotage. Unless and until that thinking comes in, I think there are people who say that, let's allow them not in the critical sector, but in civil sector. I think just ask the one question to those babus, how do you segregate between critical sector and non-critical? I mean, what is not critical in India? Tell me, do you think that telecom sector is not critical, that they cannot bring down the power grids? Or do you think that power is less critical to telecom? Or do you think cloud storage is less critical? Do you know Alibaba is running data centers in India, Indian companies are hosting, and people not even aware the quantum of data which is lying in Alibaba data centers in India. The kind of financial explosion India is now having. Every consortium which has filed for this, new payment regimes, including Reliance and other countries, every consortium indirectly has got one or other Chinese partner, a lead Chinese partner, be it Alibaba or be it Tencent. And we are happy to allow them to become a part of consortium and allow even those applications at application stage. I think that thinking has to change. That we may learn from our mistakes, or we can choose to learn from others' mistakes. If we are determined on a way to become sooner or later a Chinese colony, then so be it. If you want to retain your independent strategic, value in the world, then ensure that China does not find a space in any of India's development journey.
And that's why Bharata first. I think if we all have that kind of an attitude and
I hope
that kind of an
intention,
all
the bureaucrats who are watching for China first is watching this show.
Time to get quick closing comments now from all my panelists with the best way forward, starting first with you, Mr. Ranade.
Well, firstly, I would say that I entirely agree with what has just been said by both the co-panelists. I would only enlarge or expand their scope by saying it's not just the bureaucrats. It is every citizen today in India who has to start thinking of China as an enemy, as an enemy country, not an adversary, not as unfriendly, but as an enemy country, which has designs on us. That is the first. Second, whether it's private business, whether it is a small-time businessman, he needs to move away from sourcing from China. And he has to find other capabilities. It will have multiple effects, mind you, positive ones. It will build our own economic systems. It will generate more employment, whole host of things. But this is the key, that we have to start treating China as an unfriendly enemy power. The second thing is we have to start tapping into our own resources, human resources. And for that, the government has to look at what the Chinese are doing at their 14th five-year plan, which was announced last month. They have gone in a massive way to upgrading science and technology. And as far as the subject we are discussing is concerned, National integrated big data centers are huge amounts have been put aside for that. They're setting up data centers, integrated data centers across the country. They're putting up hubs. They're giving a massive push to the digital Silk Road, which will enable them to try and set the cyber rules for the world. So they're moving in that direction. And if we have to compete with them, if we have to even safeguard ourselves, we have to make a similar investment and tap our human resources.
Absolutely. General?
Well, I've just got two. You see, a lot has been said, but I want to give 2 points which really haven't come out in this particular discussion. One, I think there is a need for a cyber command. Now, this has to be a multi-agency command encompassing both the military and the civil sector. Now, how this can come about is, of course, is a matter of discussion. But we need a structure which is overarching and which will meet the requirements of the whole country. This is one. The second thing, I think, when we are looking into chip manufacture, that is a criticality. Now, we have lost that race for a very long time, and you cannot start reinventing the wheel. Let us buy this technology. It may cost a few $1 billion. It is those few $1 billion are well spent. Spend this money now, get that technology, and get level with the other countries, and then take it from there. We are very fortunate that as far as human talent is concerned, India is unbeatable. And so when we are looking at the human capital, it is there. What we require is government initiatives from the corporate sector and from the people, as Mr. Ranade mentioned. And finally, make a concerted push towards manufacturing on our own. It could be a government-private enterprise or whichever way we wish to do it. But unless we start our own manufacture, we will continue to be vulnerable. Frank.
And Jitin Jain, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
I think with whatever course correction this government has done in terms of both mobile apps or telecom and power sector to ensure that to do away with the Chinese dependence, I think we must relook at what Mr. Gadkari said during one of the shows on other sister channels, that वो घूम फिर के आएंगे, कंसोर्शियम बनाएंगे, पीछे से आएंगे, फ्रंट एंड लेके आएंगे इंडिया का. We have to ensure that they come directly or indirectly, they don't get any contract. And this is specifically happening in power sector, where Indian companies are made to bid for the tenders, and then you win the tenders. And obviously in India L1 है तो सब कुछ है, और L1 के अंदर you don't give the product name and specifications. And once you have the tender, then you find the cheapest Chinese gadgetry rolling into your public sector undertakings and the critical sector. So I think government must ensure on two things. One is not only of the label of origin, but label of dependence on China. Whether if you have any dependence on this product on China or not. Because what is happening, people are short circuiting. They get stuff from China, assemble here, put it made in India label and supplying. So I think dependence on China on any product now has to be labeled. Two, any Indian company running into a consortium and front-ending a Chinese company into any tender, whether in civil sector or private sector, has to disclose that conflict of interest or the dependence on China. So I think these two things will make one thing very clear. And to sum up, as Dr. Ranade said, China is not your friendly neighbor. They are not your largest trading partner. They are a hostile enemy sitting on your border just in a chance to looking and acquire your territory and kill your own people. So let us not become the angel funders of our own destruction.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, then, we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that the cyber threat from China is real. Beijing poses the biggest threat to us, and we have to be extremely watchful. We have to develop indigenous capability in hardware so that our interests are not compromised. We have to also develop a system that is unique to India, which can deal with cyber threats from anywhere in the world. The only way we can counter the Chinese threat is by reducing our dependency on Chinese goods. We have to come up with offensive strategies that are proactive and not just reactive. And finally, and most importantly, of course, the policymakers and the government will continue to do their part, but we too have to be responsible citizens and always ensure that we put Bharata first. All of us have to do our bit if we have to overcome this particular problem. And once again, before I leave, I'd like to thank you all for your continued support, For those of you who haven't already subscribed, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and then all notifications. Do follow our social media handles for all the latest updates, and you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. The Bharata First team is also running a daily quiz. The winner will get to interview me. In the process, you can improve your own knowledge and be better informed as well. The details are all in the description of this particular video. There is also a contribution link for those who would like to come forward and contribute to keep this content alive, and it will be of great help. That's it from me. See you again next time.